So you've spent months, maybe even years, deep in your research. You've crunched all the numbers, and you've got these brilliant insights. But now what? How do you take all of that amazing work and actually turn it into a report that people will read, understand, and act on? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. How to go from great research to a report that truly matters.
But let's start with a really tough question. You've done all the heavy lifting. You've done the work. But is it possible that all that brilliant research could still be destined to fail? The surprising truth? Yeah, it is. Because its success often has less to do with the research itself and a whole lot more to do with how you communicate it.
You know, our source material for this explainer puts it pretty bluntly. All the effort hitherto expended on the investigation would have been in vain. I mean, just think about that. Without a clear, convincing report, all of your work, all those late nights could just fizzle out. So how do we make sure that never happens?
Well, it all starts right here, with our very first principle. You have to define your mission. This is the crucial thinking you need to do way before you write a single word of that report.
And that mission, it really boils down to answering two simple but absolutely fundamental questions. First, what is the purpose of this report? And second, who is my audience? Seriously, these two answers are going to be your North Star. They'll guide every single decision you make from here on out.
Let me show you what I mean. Your purpose completely changes the shape of your report. Let's say you're writing a simple descriptive report for a manager who just needs the raw employee recruitment stats. Okay, that's going to be really specific, factual, and narrowly focused. But what if you're writing a comprehensive strategic report for the company president? Well, now you're talking deep analysis, alternative solutions, a full-blown cost-benefit study. See? Same company, but two totally different purposes lead to two wildly different reports.
And your audience? Oh, that's just as important. A super busy executive does not have time to wade through 50 pages on your methodology. No way. They need the bottom line right up front, in a nice, crisp summary. But a technical team? They might want to see every single spreadsheet, every calculation. Tailoring your report to your audience, the length, the structure, even the language you use, that is the key to actually being heard.
Okay, so once you've figured out your why and your who, it's time for principle number 2. Build the blueprint. I want you to think about this like an architect designing a house, right? You wouldn't just show up and start throwing bricks around. You'd need a clear, logical plan to make sure the whole thing stands up straight.
So what does this blueprint look like? Well, the classic report follows a really logical path. You start with step 1, the title and summary. That's your first impression. Then comes step 2, the introduction, where you set the stage and define the problem. Step 3 is the body. This is the real heart of your report, where you lay out all the evidence. And finally, step 4 is the conclusion, where you land the plane with your findings and recommendations. See how each part builds on the last?
Now, let's zoom in on what might be the single most important part of that blueprint for a lot of your readers, the executive summary. Our source defines it as a brief account of the entire study. And for a busy manager, this might be the only part they actually read. So it has to tell the whole story, but in miniature, it's got to be perfect.
Because ultimately, that's the whole point of the blueprint. You're not just dumping a list of facts onto a page. You are crafting a well-built story. A great report has this smooth, logical flow that takes your reader by the hand and guides them from the problem through all the evidence and straight to your brilliant solution.
But you know what? The journey doesn't always end on the page. Sometimes you got to get up and present your findings. And that brings us to principle 3. Take it from page to stage. This is a huge shift because what makes a great detailed document is often the exact opposite of what makes a great live presentation.
And the biggest enemy you're going to face, it's almost always time. You might get just 20 minutes. Think about that for a second. Months of work squeezed into a presentation that's shorter than most sitcoms. It forces you to be absolutely ruthless with what you keep and what you cut. So, what makes the cut? Well, you have to switch gears from documenting everything to persuading someone of something. You have to focus on the absolute essentials. What's the core problem? What are the key results? What are the clear-cut conclusions? And most importantly, what are the actionable recommendations? All that deep dive methodology stuff? Save it for the Q&A. So how do you make those essential points really stick in such a short amount of time? Well, our source reminds us of that old saying we've all heard a million times, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in a live presentation, believe me, visuals aren't just pretty decorations. They're your most powerful communication tools. For example, you could spend a whole minute just reading out staffing numbers from a paragraph, or you could just pop up this simple bar chart. Instantly, everyone in the room gets it.
They see the staffing levels, they compare them, it's just clearer, faster, and way more memorable.
And you can mix it up. A donut chart like this is perfect for showing proportions, like the gender split in your staff. Using different kinds of charts keeps your presentation dynamic and helps make different kinds of data really pop.
But listen, great slides are only half the battle. Your delivery is the other half. You've got to make eye contact, vary your tone of voice, mix up your sentences, and the number one rule, rehearse. Rehearse until you know this stuff so well you could do it in your sleep. That's where real confidence comes from.
So we've defined our mission, we've built our blueprint, and we've learned how to take it from the page to the stage. What's the one big idea that ties all this together? What's the ultimate takeaway?
It's this. A great report isn't a monologue. It's not you just dumping a pile of information on someone. It's a conversation. It's a dialogue that you've carefully designed with clarity, with conviction, and most importantly, with a deep understanding of your audience and what they need from you.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. Your research has something important to say. It has a voice. So the real question is, after all your hard work, how will you make sure it's heard?